This is the Weekly Set, the official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com. Episode 192, recorded February 1st, 2019. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weekly Set, the official podcast of The Total Screen. I am your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So, today we are going to be talking about our two active discussion shows, the two shows that we're going to be talking about week to week at this time, which is True Detective and The Magicians. We're going to be talking about True Detective Season 3, Episode 4, The Hour and the Day, and we're going to be talking about The Magicians Season 4, Episode 2, Lost, Found, Fucked. So those are the two episodes we're going to be talking about. Let's kick things off with True Detective. Last week we talked about the fact that the stylistic choices that the series was taking with the first two episodes were largely lost in the third, and it had to do with a new director potentially, but I think we were both kind of on the side where we were hoping that that wasn't the case, that this one episode was going to be like a diversion, and it was going to kind of go back and find it.
Those stylistic choices are still missing from this episode.
Yeah, which makes it seem like it is the director, that the change of directors that had this effect on it. I'm still hoping that some kind of greatness will come back, that some kind of play into the kind of memory angle and some of the cool stuff they did in the first two episodes will find its way back in. But right now it seems like it's lost that. That's not to say everything's bad that's happening here. The mystery is still pretty compelling. Like I said last week, I don't necessarily care too much about the personal drama that's going on with the characters.
I think that's the bulk.
The 1990s story, as I say.
Oh, well, I was going to say, the personal drama is like the meat and potatoes of the show, so if you're not enjoying that, then you're not enjoying the show.
I'm enjoying the bread on the sandwich. I'm enjoying 1980 and I'm enjoying 2015. 1990 isn't necessarily like rotten meat or something, but it's just like a brand of cheese that I don't like. That I tolerate.
Now, I don't think it's as bad as you think it is. But yeah, it has been a little more dull since the first two episodes.
There is one thing we can talk about, and this is kind of what I ended up putting in my show notes here, is there is a lot of kind of movement in the mystery in this episode. They go through like a bunch of different new suspects. We get to meet for the first time in last week's episode, towards the end of the episode, they had the moment where they found the picture of Will's first communion and how it was comparable to his, like, the pose he had in death, the way he was placed. So in this episode, we get to meet their church and some of the church community. So first we meet a priest, and Roland right off the bat doesn't like him. He has his crass reasons for that. Basically, he doesn't fuck, so I don't like him. He took a pledge not to fuck. That makes him untrustworthy. Wayne isn't necessarily buying into that, but through the course of the episode and through the events, you can see that Wayne believes that whoever killed Will and took Julie, he believes is part of this community, part of this church community.
Right. He believes that they are part of that they attend the church.
So Roland doesn't like the priest, and Wayne thinks that it's connected to this community, the church community in general. Besides the priest, or I should say through the priest, they get two new leads, which is they talk about those straw dolls, and we find out kind of the origin of those. The priest says that those are chaff dolls.
They were being made by this woman who was selling them at like a church function.
Yeah, like on the first, they say they do them every year on the first week of October, which we know that the one girl got the doll on Halloween.
Yes.
So that kind of like that, and that was supposed to be like kind of pretty soon before.
So that lines up.
Yeah. And this woman's name is Patty Faber. They go and they interview her. again, they're playing on kind of racism. You can tell she's a bit racist when they ask, like, can you tell us any more besides if he's black? Like, is he ugly? Is he attractive? You know? And she said, well, he's black.
Wayne's asking those questions specifically. Yeah. And you can see that Wayne's getting frustrated with her and her answers, you know, like she says, well, black. And you can tell, like, Wayne is visibly frustrated by that response.
Yeah, because it's basically the implication is, well, ugly, of course, because he's black.
Yeah, exactly.
So she does say that this person that she sold 10 of these dolls to was a Negro, as she said, with a dead eye. So this brings them on to another suspect that they need to look into. So they end up they go on to a few different places looking around. They go to a liquor store. They go to a few other places. They end up finding that there is one black guy in this community who has a dead eye. Yeah. And they go to kind of interrogate him, and he just immediately, like, creates a race war.
Yeah.
He's basically like, you know, these people are trying to railroad me, gets like everybody in the community to kind of gather and go like, what the fuck's going on here?
He basically turns the community into a weapon to chase these detectives off, you know?
Yeah. And he's being he's dodging questions from them. Yeah. Like, even when they do have moments where they can get questions right at him, he's dodging them pretty thoroughly.
And I think, not to discredit, I think he has legit reasons for distrusting the police.
Yeah, that plays into kind of like the racism storylines and stuff.
It plays into the racism. Like, it's not explicit, like, it's not like they explain it or anything, but you can tell, you know, that he's had issues in the past. And so he is reasonably distrustful.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's reasonably distrustful, but he's also very far from being helpful.
Well, he doesn't want to be helpful because he doesn't trust, because he thinks they're just there to frame him or, you know, pin a crime on him and call it a day.
Yeah, to railroad him, as I think he said.
Yeah, that's what he thinks they're there for. He already takes the position that they're not there in good faith.
Yeah. This isn't like a known quantity in this. Like, it could be the case that he's involved as well, but it's easily just as much possible that he is just hostile towards them because of his past experiences dealing with police.
Right. I mean, he's in rural Arkansas. He's a pretty old man, and this is the 1980s already. So you gotta figure, like, the shit he's been through. You know? You gotta figure that he's been through some real shit.
Yeah. He's seen some clan shit.
He's seen some clan shit, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, he is right to not be trustful.
Some other movements we've had kind of in the storyline. In 2015, the documentarian who's working with Wayne, at one point, Wayne's trying to get her to give him some information, because he's like, this is my memories and this is my case that's so important in my life. He's like, I need this information you have because I'm just sitting here not able to be at peace unless you give me some of this information so I can put it together in my head. I don't have an ulterior motive. I just want to know the pieces. And she finally relents and gives him one piece of evidence, which is now we know the fate of Dan, Lucy's cousin, who stayed with their family months before the kids disappeared. The one who seems to have drew people.
Well, we don't know his fate per se. Like, we don't know what happened. We know he's dead. And they found
fate. He's a skeleton found in a sinkhole or something or that.
Well, we don't know why, how, how'd that come about? You know?
Yeah. But we know in this episode they talk about the fact that he disappeared in like the 1990 storyline.
Yeah,
they were like looking for him. They were trying to track him down and they couldn't find him. And the implication that they found him in 2015 and he was just a skeleton. And I think the idea is that it's very possible, not set in stone, but very possible that he was already dead when they were looking for him in 1990.
Also, this episode confirms via the same conversation that in 2015 they still don't know what happened to the girl.
Yes. But we do see some of that in 1990. Wayne actually finds the footage of the girl who left this fingerprint, whether it's Julie or not.
Right.
So he kind of catches her on video, whoever it is.
Whoever, yeah.
We had mentioned, talking about the first two episodes when we were talking about the suspects and stuff, that the teenagers were riding around on Will's bike.
Yes. This came back up. I knew it was going to come up as soon as I saw that shot of the teenager riding on Will's bike, because they found the bike, they found his prints all over it. They go in hard on him. They go in hard. They give him the whole thing, like, they basically tell him he's fucked and that he's nailed to the wall and he's going to prison. And, Wayne brings up prison rape again. He
really called him on it.
Prison
rape well a lot.
Yeah, prison. He just says, in his defense, he was just bullying Will. He was just picking on him because, he thought he was a snot-nosed kid and, he had power over him, but, he didn't have anything to do with it. And they're like, no, you're fucked. Yeah, and you're going to get fucked in prison. And they just reduce him to fucking tears.
Yeah.
They like,
it's just a total mess, like completely apart.
Yeah, completely falling apart.
They're actually kind of like at the point of trying to figure out what to do with him when they get distracted by what I'm going to bring up later. Yeah. Because I want to cover everything, because I think that was probably the best part of the episode.
It was the best part of the episode, and the fact that, like, the episode ends on a cliffhanger was like, so, I was like, oh, God. But, yeah.
Let's talk about some more information. Another thing we found out in 2015 is that Wayne's son is a cop.
Yes.
And that Wayne kind of, in a way, kind of cons him into getting information on certain people from the case.
Right.
He's phrasing it. I mean, it's not like his son doesn't understand the whole thing, and it's not as if there isn't honesty in what he's saying either, but he's basically like, it helps my memory to focus on elements of this case that was so important to my life.
I think, yeah, I mean, that might not be a total lie, but I think he's using it as an excuse. Like, his son starts suspicious. His son starts, are you still working this case? And he's kind of denying it, but in reality, he is.
Yeah, so he's kind of conning his son. There's truth to what he's saying, but he's conning him. I mean, they say, like, best cons have an element of truth in the middle, right? So.
Right, exactly. And again, the reason he's still working this case is because even in 2015, even after all these years, it's so haunting to him, he can't let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We also got to see in the 1990, it's in the 1980 storyline. I should say, actually, this is confusing. Okay. In the 1990 storyline last week, we got to see the relationship between Roland and Tom. And the fact that Roland helped Tom with something.
Roland helped Tom. We see in 1990, Roland and Tom are actually like good friends. Or at least like Roland, checks in on Tom and makes sure he's all right,
Yeah.
Regularly, it seems.
Well, now we see in the 1980 storyline that Roland ends up picking up Tom, who's just completely drunk and has like started a fight and stuff, and picks him up and is kind of taking care of him because Tom just kind of happened to have his business card on him. In doing so and picking him up, he's kind of helping him out, and Tom has a moment where he kind of breaks down and is like, I can't go back to the house. They're everywhere in the house. The kids are everywhere. I can't go back to it. And we see the beginning of this relationship that we saw in the last episode being shown in the 1990 storyline because Roland lets Tom stay at his house.
Right.
Trying to think what else we got here. We had a scene where Amelia, Wayne's wife in the 1990 storyline, but this is in the 1980 storyline, she visits Lucy, the mother of the children. And this is kind of a crazy scene because she's breaking down. There's points where it's like, man, does she know more about this case? Cause she's like talking about the things she's done and stuff. And you're like, there's something that's going to come back on this. It's not just that she was like whorish or something. There's something else in here in what she's like freaking out about, that we just know. It might have nothing to do with the kids. It could have something to do with something else. I mean, there's a lot of stuff about racism in this, This could be like something that she did that's like more like of a racist or racially motivated thing that she's done in her past or something.
Right.
We don't know, but there's something going on in her past that they're going to explore. And she has like a complete breakdown, like an emotional moment with Amelia, kind of like letting Amelia kind of comfort her. At this point, Amelia is suggesting that she talks to Wayne.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know this detective, the Wayne of those two detectives. He's a good man. You should talk to him. And
that's when she pulls back and she closes up again.
She freaks out on her. She's like, get the hell out of my house. Yeah, she just, it's kind of like, it snaps on it. And that's part of why I think, like, this is going to come back.
Right.
Like there's more here. There's more to this woman's past. And I don't think it's necessarily related to her kids. I think it's something else.
Well, I think last season, or not, I think last week we learned that like she's gone in the 1990 timeline. She like passed away, I think.
Yeah, didn't she like have an overdose or something?
Something.
Yeah. I think they implied something about that. We just don't know what yet.
Again, there's a lot of stuff missing still, like
ambiguity.
A lot of ambiguity. They're feeding us information like breadcrumbs with every episode through these 3 timelines. So we still don't have the full picture of anything happening. But we still don't have the answer to the big question: is what makes this case so special or significant, besides the fact that kids are missing and they find one, they didn't find the other. But apparently, yeah, but this has special significance, especially to Wayne. Wayne is apparently fired from being a detective, for some reason. Something happens. And we don't know, what the hell happens with this.
Well, we do know that in 2015, he's straight up hallucinating and hearing voices of the ghost of the people that he either killed or that he feels responsibility for the death of, I guess.
Or people who he just missed, or maybe he feels he's wrong. Like last episode, he gets a visit from the ghost of his wife. And we know now, through the 1990 flashbacks, that they don't have the happiest of relationships. When you see 2015, and when you see him reflecting on his wife, he makes it seem more rosy than it actually is.
Yeah. Well, we see in the 1990 storyline that they, at the very least, they can have very passionate, angry sex.
Yeah, they can. They can get into a heated argument that ends with angry sex.
But in 2015, he's not hallucinating one person. He's hallucinating a crowded room.
Yeah, this episode he has another hallucination where it's presumably people he's killed and fellow soldiers who died in Vietnam,
There's a guy in a suit.
Yeah.
That we saw, and there's some other people too. So there's other people that I don't know if it's all people he killed, like I said, or people that he feels responsible.
I don't think it's all people he killed because there are some American soldiers mixed in with some Viet Cong. I'm pretty sure the Viet Cong are people he's killed, but there are some soldiers too. I think those are people he knew in the war who died, fighting alongside him.
Yeah, it's people maybe he feels responsible for the death stuff.
Yeah, maybe it's all people he feels responsible for the death of.
It's the ghosts that are haunting him, Yeah. But here it's kind of literal. It's not literal that it's actually happening, but it's literal in his mind.
It's happening in his mind, Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not literal. Again, True Detective likes to flirt with the metaphysical, especially in season 1. There's a lot of talk about time being a loop and, and all this. So True Detective likes to flirt with metaphysical concepts. I think this is one of them.
Yeah, there's stuff going on with that. He's hearing these ghosts and he's telling them to shut up because he's trying to pay attention. He's paying attention. He thinks somebody's following him.
Yeah. He looks out the window and he sees this car parked across the street. And I'm pretty sure he thinks that's somebody following him. Yeah.
We still haven't seen Roland in 2015.
No.
It was referenced though, because Wayne wants to get in touch with Roland. His son is kind of scoffs at it or something. And they basically play with the idea that Wayne doesn't even know if he's alive or dead.
Right. We get the feeling that, they lose touch again after 1990.
Mm-hmm.
So Wayne doesn't have any idea what Roland's doing. We don't know what happens to Roland. Something could happen in 1990. Roland ends up dead. And then Wayne just ends up not being a detective for good,
Yeah, we don't know what's going on with that. That's something that we still have to learn more about. And that brings us to kind of the last scene of the show. And it's something that kind of was set up maybe about 3/4 of the way through the episode and kind of was cutting back and forth in other scenes.
Well, this was really set up last episode.
Mm-hmm.
This was set up the last episode. It was the Indian guy, the trash man. Yep, it was the trash man, and we remember last episode a group of men, locals, kind of out of racism. Let's just say it. Like, literally just because of racism and because he's like an outsider and a weirdo. Like, they basically blame him for the kidnappings and they beat the crap out of him and tell him to stay away from their children. Well, he doesn't heed that advice because this episode, he's approaching these two kids. They're drinking a soda and he's asking them for their cans when they're done with their soda, you know? He's collecting cans. You know, totally innocent, you know? But one of those guys who beat the shit out of him, you know, he sees them out his window talking to these kids. And so he gathers the posse and they chase him down, right? And he actually manages to escape back to his house, where he has, you know, some explosives wired, you know, to...
Yeah, he has a claymore.
He has a claymore, you know, he has a stockpile of guns. And he's getting ready for fucking war at this point, you know?
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Then we get a scene where it cuts back to the police station we'd mentioned when they were interrogating the teenager. And they're like trying to figure out what to do with the teenager and what they believe about his story and what they don't. And a deputy kind of comes in and is like, the locals are going after the Indian. And they're like, oh shit. So they go and they get in their car, they pull up at the residence and they're like, what's going on here? Disperse, come on, calm down everybody. And the one guy that kind of called the posse together is kind of like being completely reckless, even with police right there in front of him, and is yelling at the door, telling him to come out and that they're gonna get him and saying, you know, if you don't come out, then I'm gonna come in. And he goes and he kicks the door in, and we see that claymore set up right in front of the door with the print on the front saying, you know, this side towards enemy, which is what claymores say on them. And it's facing the door.
Roland and Wayne rush over there and they get there just as this guy is kicking in the door, you know, and we know the claymore's set to go off as soon as that door opens. And right before the action, that's when credits roll. And it's like, wow.
The episode, it's kind of like, oh god, something happened there.
Something happened there.
Or maybe nothing. Maybe like he kicks in the door and it was a complete dud.
Yeah, maybe it was a dud. but we won't know until we watch the next episode. So.
Yeah, like I said, I think the mystery is still compelling. I think there's some interesting things. I really like this Native American, the Trash Man character. I think he's interesting.
Yes.
There's things like that I like here and there about it. I think the kind of the potential of like the weird like occultism of like the straw dolls and stuff, even though they kind of demystified it a little bit in this episode, is strong. I like the kind of Vietnam story. I think the racism story might be getting a little overplayed.
They demystified the straw dolls a bit, but I think they still, whoever the killer is, whoever the kidnapper is, I think they have a meaning to that person, you know, beyond like the dolls themselves. Like, so in a way, there's still something mystifying about them because it's clear that the killer assigned a meaning to them.
Yes. Also, there's like a level of tension that's like, you know, bordering on like an explosion ready to go off, as, you know, what the Claymore is quite literally represents, with both this group going after the Native American, the Trash Man, but also with other things like the wife freaking out, we had mentioned, you know, and like screaming at the one woman about, you know, getting out of her house and stuff, and the way she just on a dime just flipped and just went completely mental. Or the one guy with the dead eye, the Negro with the dead eye that was trying to kind of like as you said, weaponize the local crowd against the police and stuff. There's like, they're playing a lot on the idea of like tensions, not just some of it racial, some of it based on like, you know, the times and like the kind of the Vietnam stuff that is right in the background of it. They're playing on that a lot. And I do like those aspects. And when those scenes, when they start really playing on the tension, the music gets really tense. It gets really good with that. And everything feels really dark and dire in those moments. And so I'm really enjoying those aspects of it. But the first two episodes were doing crazy stuff with the way memories were being interpreted, with the way they were presenting the idea of memories being unreliable, and the way that was visually interpreted and the way that was put together was amazing. And it's like completely gone now, not just in the third episode, but now in this episode as well.
Yeah. It seems like that's been dropped, unfortunately.
Yeah. So if anything, it's a little bit less special for that alone. I do like some of the suspects that are coming in now, and I do like I said, some of the different storylines are going in. I really like the way this episode ended, and I'm looking forward to it. There's also I don't know if you've seen any of this, and I'm not going to go into the theories because I haven't done the research. I'm just trying to watch this episode to episode, but I've seen headlines and articles and stuff talking about there's some really direct connections to True Detective season 1. Including there's apparently like a very direct one that people spotted in the scenes for next week's episode. But then there's also some other stuff like the straw dolls that's kind of connected to True Detective season 1. There's some of that was like very similar. And people are like basically saying that this is like a shared universe.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then they're starting to put more hints of that. So it's going to be interesting to see how much it goes into that, you know?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure.
If they give elements of this story that gives you more details about things that happened in True Detective that we never got closure on, that'll be fascinating.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
In like an indirect way, just kind of like, it'd be cool to see that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's kind of True Detective. I think we're a little lukewarm on it. We're still enjoying it, but we're a little lukewarm. At least I am.
Right.
Let's move on then to The Magicians, season 4, episode 2, Lost, Found, Fucked. Kind of broken this down into storylines based on the main kind of storylines that are going on here. And like the kind of quests that characters are on or the things that they're doing. We have different like groupings that we basically see. So let's start with Elliot or not Elliot and Quentin.
Yeah, let's start with Elliot and Quentin, who is not Elliot, is trying to summon the god of war.
Not Ares.
He's
in Ialius, I think is his name. I don't know the pronunciation.
Okay, well, congrats. You pronounced it. That was a good try. Anyway, basically, Elliot has to kill and sacrifice a pig, which he is reluctant to do.
I mean, Quentin has to.
Yeah, Quentin. But Quentin has to.
Not Elliot is forcing Quentin to catch and sacrifice and, scatter the entrails of a pig in order to summon this god.
Yeah.
I thought it was actually, typical magicians. They find like just funny ways of saying things. Like I like the part where Elliot's saying like, oh, I can't do it. Like it has to be you. An essential ingredient is, what do you call the juice that comes from your skin?
Sweat.
Quentin doesn't want to do it. He like refuses to do it. He's like, what are you going to, he's like, I'm not scared of you anymore. He's like, so if you're going to kill me, go ahead and do it. And Elliot's like, oh, I'd never do that. And then gestures with his fingers and just like completely destroys his arm.
Yeah.
So poor Quentin's being like tortured basically until he gives in and does it.
Yeah.
This god turns out not to be the god that not Elliot is looking for.
It's a decoy because this god is too smart to just appear.
But Elliot's kind of like playing around inside the guts of this.
Well, he's looking for something, right? He's looking for something God has that he believes is his.
And looking involves playing around in his guts. Just being utterly brutal. And this is like this other god or something that's a servant of the god that he's looking for. And, it's kind of a dead end. This god is not exposing himself. There's more about them, but we'll do that last. Next storyline is Alice, Santa, and the head librarian.
Yes.
There's not a lot of them in this episode.
No, there's not a lot of them, but we see Alice making an attempt to find an escape. Like, she's using the bug that she found. So basically, she accesses some magic, like, I guess, like, the tube running.
It's a pneumatic tube.
Yeah, the tube, like, she can access magic through it.
Yeah, this is like a hint that Nick gives her.
And so basically she puts her hand up in there to access the magic, and she uses what little magic she can get to kind of take control of this bug. She could see like through its eyes and kind of like go into like the head librarian woman's like office. And I guess she's looking for a way to escape or something, but it doesn't last because head librarian sees the bug and squashes it.
Yeah. So not a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of the storyline we got from her. Next up, we have the storyline that I call Margot and Fillory. Yeah.
Margot and Fillory. So we find out what the problem in Fillory is.
Margot meets her favorite rapper, Fresh.
Yeah. Well, no, that's not the problem.
We should get to that first, though, because that's kind of the first encounter she has. She's pulled into a freshwater lake by this, like, creature, calls himself Lord Fresh. He's like the king of fresh water.
Yeah.
He says he has a birthright box for her. He has like a box that's like contains her birthright, and it's in a box, but he can't give it to her because of the spell that's currently on her. Any attempt to play at the truth of who they are sets off this spell and causes disasters and problems to occur. And that includes her and Fillory accepting her birthright, because she can't accept her birthright. That would be accepting that she is this person that the spell is saying she isn't.
Right.
So
she can't touch it because the spell will kill him.
Yeah. So she's informed of it and told, when the spell's over, come back and
get it. Yeah.
She makes her way back to the Fillory's castle, where she runs into like Elliot's wife and the Florian Council and all those people. She doesn't look like herself, and she doesn't really even know who she is, but she talks enough about what's going on with it, and then when they try to mention Margot in front of her, like, disasters are going off. So basically the council, like, says, okay, well, this is worth pointing out, this person who claims to be the High King, and everything, like, disasters keep going off whenever we talk about the High King in front of her.
Yeah.
So she talks to them and she says, well, something's wrong in Fillory. What's going on? You know, Ember said I was going to do it. And they're like, Ember's back. They're all, that would make sense because there's like morphine in the air. People are like having the effects of taking morphine just in places in Fillory. And they track this pattern of where these instances have occurred and find out where the next one would be. And they end up finding this party and they find Ember.
Yes.
It's not Ember.
Nope, but somebody familiar.
It's Bacchus cosplaying as Ember.
I think Bacchus has fooled everybody into thinking he's Ember, and he's spreading his particular brand of mischief in Fillory now. He's basically taken up residence in Fillory.
Which is one of the conditions that could have enacted Ember's message to Margot, if you remember.
Yeah.
Message to the High King, one of the conditions was
an
invading God, yes.
Yeah.
So this would qualify, and this seems to be the issue. He leaves kind of the direct vicinity of where they are, but he doesn't necessarily leave Fillory as far unless I'm doing it wrong.
I don't think he does.
So Bacchus is in Fillory. This is now the Fillory problem.
This is now the Fillory problem. I think now Margot's job is to figure out how to get Bacchus to leave.
So next story up, Katie, Penny, and Josh.
Yeah.
So they're in the apartment still. Marina tries to kind of remove the enchantment on them,
but she can't.
And this triggers a Amber Alert.
Yeah.
Dean Fogg's voice kind of starts blaring through Marina's cell phone, saying, "Whoever this is trying to
break the
spell. If you do this, you'll be as dead as they will," or something.
Yeah, you'll be as dead as they will be. Like basically saying, don't, you know. And
but even doing that is his own downfall, because Marina, of course, recognizes his voice. It's funny because Josh is like, "Oh my God, it's James Earl Jones."
Yeah.
But Marina recognizes immediately that it's Dean Fogg because he has message. And so he exposes himself.
I tell you, Dean Fogg was the best part of this episode.
Yeah, we're getting to a story next.
So
that's like the next one on there. But I should say before that in this other scene though, Marina has a plan to go after Dean Fogg to try to kind of cure this situation.
Well,
part of that, she ends up taking a piece of the spell that was cast on them.
Yeah.
Like literally taking it off of Penny.
Yeah, literally taking it off of Penny. And basically she restores Penny's ability to teleport.
He's a traveler again. He can do that. Now she has a piece of the spell that she can use.
She has a piece of the spell. She restored his ability to travel, and so she uses Penny to travel to Breakvilles, to where Dean Fogg is, and she basically injects him with the spell, basically casts the spell on him, and tells him that he needs to break the spell on everybody else and, you know, cure himself. And he just says, like, well, there's no cure. There's no way to break the spell.
She's like, well, then you better hurry up and make one.
Yeah, he's like, you better hurry up. Yeah, she's ruthless. And she turns him into like, she says, oh yeah, and you won't have a good life like all your students.
Yeah. We'll talk about who she turns him into a little later, because we got to go through his storyline there.
Well, yeah, and this is the best part, because, well, Dean Fogg doesn't just go, oh shit, gotta find a cure. He just resigns. He just says, well, that's it. And
had a good run.
Yeah, had a good run, right? That's basically his response. He just says, had a good run. So he starts having Todd. He confides in Todd what happened and what he's doing. And he basically has Todd like pen his memoirs, and he's going through like his life and all his regrets. And this is like the best freaking thing because like Dean Fogg is just a straight up asshole. He is. I love what he says to Todd. He says, magic is just a pain in the ass. I've lived 40 timelines, each ranging from the comically awful to the apocalyptically horrific. Yeah, or something. It's basically like, yeah, magic sucks. And then, like, there's this one guy, like, he, like, knocks this guy out. He's like, hey, bam.
That's his whole goal with the one guy. He goes to his tailor.
Yeah.
And they don't have the final suit isn't done yet, but they bring it out for her. He talks to Julia, who's now Kim, and he confides enough that she's able to figure out that he was one of her students.
Right.
Which ends up working against him because after he gives up and is basically, we can say now, is turned into Marina's homeless father, basically.
Yeah, basically. Well, Julia, or not Julia, she gets the bright idea that she is going to try and break the spell.
Yeah. And she ends up figuring out by talking, like saying like, well, how would this work? How would there be enough power for this to work at all times?
Well, she figures it out, right? Because she's with Todd and they're doing magic and the magic for the day runs out, because it's being rationed by the library. And so the magic runs out and Todd just says, we're out of magic, and then Julia gets the bright idea. She's like, wait, if there's a spell on us, and the spell needs magic to run. And if there's no magic, how is the spell running? That's what gives her first big clue.
And Todd kind of answers it because he's like, well, he figures out he did it. He's like, oh, I guess Dean Fogg did it. And it was Dean Fogg had been working on, and this probably came through in the memoirs when he was doing Dean Fogg's memoir.
Yeah, when he was doing Dean Fogg's memoirs. Yeah, this probably came through the memoirs. Like, Todd knows that he has a battery that supplies
a self-sustaining battery. It's like we've seen magic batteries before, but they only hold a certain amount.
Yeah, apparently this one holds unlimited magic.
Well, not so much unlimited as we kind of find out. But what it is it's self-sustainable for what it's doing.
Right.
So it sustains itself. It doesn't run out. And they end up finding this battery and they're like, holy shit, it's real. Julia figures out that if it's self-sustainable but it's got to have a limit to how much power it can use at a time or something. So she's like, we can overload it.
Yeah, she tries to overload it. It throws her and kills her, but she just comes back.
This has to do with her divine nature. She used up all of her magic and kind of became like human again, I guess, or whatever, at the end of last season when she like rebuilt those keys that Alice destroyed.
Yeah.
But she still has some aspect of divinity towards her. And so keeps coming back to life.
Yeah, she just keeps coming back to life. And she just keeps doing it. She just keeps going at it. Eventually, like, at first Todd's horrified, but eventually Todd's just like, he just
like reading a book,
listening to a tape. He's basically just ignoring it as she keeps throwing herself at the sphere and killing herself over and over and over again until finally the battery runs out and the magic stops.
The spell's over. Everybody's back. I don't know if we see. I don't think they showed everybody. Like, I don't think they showed Margot talking after the spell had broken or anything.
I believe they do. Yeah, they do.
Okay, but they show the characters after the spell's broken. Now you see Quentin and Elliot. Elliot's or not Elliot's like, oh, Quentin, you're back.
Yeah,
and Quentin immediately tries to like use magic and is stopped.
Which shows that like not Elliot was aware the whole time of what was going on with Quentin, and maybe with everybody else.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then immediately now, seemingly it's not just that it granted these people different lives, but it also hid them in a way.
Which makes sense that not Elliot knew because he tracked down Quentin in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're also playing on the idea that he didn't know where everybody was.
Right.
He was able to track down Quentin, but he wasn't able to track down everybody else because he said that he wanted to kill Quentin's friends before Quentin again. But immediately after Quentin becomes Quentin again, he goes to Quentin's friends.
Right.
So like Quentin shows up and he shows up there and it's with Katie, Penny, and Josh, and they're like, "Oh, Quentin, hey, and Quentin's like kind of walking like, "No, guys, this is not good," And Elliot's right behind him. They're all in Elliot, and like Elliot makes it clear that he's not Elliot.
And it ends right there. Again, another cliffhanger.
He says, "I'm not here to play," or something.
Yeah, and it ends right there. So another cliffhanger this week, unfortunately. Exciting stuff is going to happen next week.
Yeah, but this is like the confrontation with the Beast all over again. Like they're in up Schitt's Creek.
Well, they are, because they are entirely not prepared for this. They are still rebalancing themselves from not being themselves for so long. They literally didn't have a moment to even reflect on the fact that they're back to their normal selves before Elliot Monster shows up to kill them. So they're entirely unprepared.
Yeah, and being that this is the Magicians, I can't imagine that they're going to get away completely unscathed.
No, I think it's going to be brutal. But
yeah, I think there's a very good chance that Josh is going to die. Because everybody there, he's kind of like the least important,
Yeah, I think there's a high chance of that.
So that's how the episode ends. Magicians, as usual, I always like it. It hasn't yet been as funny this season as it has in some past seasons, but it still is funny. I really liked, like I said, the line where he's like, "What do you call that juice that comes out of your skin?"
Yeah.
I think not Elliot is kind of funny in like a dark way. Yeah, but that's The Magicians. Continues to be good, and we'll be talking about it next week as well. That just leaves what's coming up in the week ahead. So as we're recording this on Friday, February 1st, 2019, the ABC Murders, a miniseries, came out on Amazon Prime. Siempre Bruja, Always a Witch, came to Netflix. It's a foreign supernatural kind of series. Russian Doll came to Netflix. This is like, have you heard of this series at all?
I saw the trailer. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a Groundhog's Day show.
Yeah. It's this girl who keeps dying over and over again. And and then turns out somebody else's too, and there's like this time loop kind of aspect. So
yeah,
it's kind of interesting. It's sort of comedy. It kind of looks more dramatic than that, but it'll be interesting to see. Then on Saturday, February 2nd, 2019, Border Town comes to Netflix. On Sunday, February 3rd, 2019, Hannah comes to Amazon Prime. Did you ever see the movie Hannah?
Nope.
It came out, I think, maybe 2011 or something, maybe earlier, I can't remember, but it was about this girl that was like trained as an assassin. And that's kind of what this is. This is like a TV show version of that, of this young girl kind of trained as an assassin. I actually really like the movie, so I kind of want to check it out. And I'm going to be able to start watching Amazon Prime stuff now because I just finally caved and bought a Roku, so I have a way to watch Amazon Prime on my TV. They're not supporting Chromecast and they don't have an app on the Switch, but I'm calling it now that within 2 weeks there's going to be an Amazon app on the Switch, and it's going to be because I bought the Roku.
Of course.
Because I finally caved and bought something extra to be able to watch Amazon Prime, which means it's only natural, of course, it's going to come now. But yeah, so that's coming to Amazon Prime on Sunday, Hannah. Sunday is also the Super Bowl. And while we don't talk about the Super Bowl on this podcast or anything, the one thing that's worth noting is that there is expected to be a lot of like TV trailers. And if you think about in the past, some of the stuff that they've had trailers for during the Super Bowl, Game of Thrones, Stranger Things. If you remember that Eggo commercial for season 2 of Stranger Things, where it was like a trailer, but it started out like an Eggo commercial, and then it turned into a trailer. Like they did like a really big, awesome trailer for Stranger Things doing that, So I'm expecting that we're going to be seeing that. Besides TV, I'm sure we'll see like, a new trailer for a new spot, a new commercial or something for like, Avengers Endgame and stuff like that too. But I'm pretty sure we're going to get something for Game of Thrones. There's been rumors for a while that there's a new trailer that's imminent, and it makes sense that they would air it in the Super Bowl, because not only could they air it in the Super Bowl, but HBO's main content is also on Sundays. So they could put it before True Detective as well.
That's a good chance of happening.
Yeah, and it makes sense. We're getting to that point where a full trailer should be coming, because it's coming in like early April, so we're only a few months out now. So that's what I'm saying. Sunday, Super Bowl, we don't talk about the sports or anything, but there's probably going to be a lot of TV trailers that are worth kind of noting and paying attention to.
Right.
Coming from that. Then on Monday, February 4th, 2019, Man with a Plan returns to CBS. Tuesday, February 5th, 2019, American Housewife on ABC. American Soul is a new miniseries on BET about Soul Train. It's kind of about the story of Soul Train. And then on Friday, February 8th, 2019, next week, Pen 15 comes to Hulu. They finally released a trailer for this. Did you see it?
Nope.
So this is that one that's supposed to be kind of like a crass, like 90s coming of age kind of comedy, Of course, Pen 15, if you write it out, looks like penis. What this show is doing that's kind of really funny is that it's about two girls that are like in junior high or something, and they're going through like puberty, but they're being played by adult actresses, the creators of the show.
Oh, really?
But the rest of the kids are all kids.
That's weird.
Which, just makes it kind of weird and a little creepy, but so it'll be interesting to see if it's creepy funny or just creepy.
Right.
Like if it nails it or not. But that's coming.
I tend to think of adults portraying children as creepy, so.
Yeah. It's a comedy though. It's not trying to be serious. So.
Even in comedies, it just creeps out. Sorry.
There is that element though. There's creepy that's still funny, and then there's creepy where it's not funny at all.
Right.
To see where it lands. One Day at a Time also returns to Netflix on that day. Unauthorized Living comes to Netflix. That's a new foreign series. Another thing coming to Netflix that was just announced that I'm kind of really excited about is Big Mouth, My Furry Valentine. Now, Big Mouth is like an animated series like Pen 15, and it's kind of about puberty, but it's like a really good, highly regarded animated series, but they're doing a special episode for Valentine's Day. This is something that Netflix has been doing recently for a few things, We did a podcast where we talked about the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and at the end we talked about that they had the Midwinter's Tale, which was like a Christmas special. It's kind of interesting to see Netflix doing this now, like having like specials for some of their shows. So I'm hoping we see some more of this. It's kind of cool. Like it'd be interesting if they did like a one-off like Stranger Things episode, because it seems like they're doing like a every 2 years thing for Stranger Things now instead of like every year. So it'd be kind of cool if like maybe one of those years they had like a one-off episode or something,
Right.
It'd be cool to kind of see things like that for those shows that have those long gaps.
That would be pretty cool.
And then lastly, Amazon Prime has a new series called White Dragon. That, of course, is also on Friday, February 8th. So that's it. Next week, we're going to continue talking about True Detective and the Magicians. Until then, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and our site, thetotalscreen.com. You want to know where our Facebook page and YouTube channel, all that stuff is, just go to thetotalscreen.com and you can find everything else through that. You can subscribe to the podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast, and the entire backlog of this podcast is available on our YouTube channel, so check that out. Thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best